Over 2% of American adults use Zyns and other nicotine pouches.
Nicotine pouches are growing in popularity, including among teens.
This is predicted to rise to over 10% by 2030, led by an uncapped marketing push targeting young men led by Zyn and their army of Zynfluencers. But this army is now at war with the government as regulations battle to keep Zyns away from a young, smoke-free market. This is the story of how a Swedish nicotine pouch became a viral sensation but may have flown too close to the sun and now risks total collapse.
Zyn nicotine pouches.
Nicotine pouches.
Pouches can be especially dangerous to growing adolescent minds.
Zyn products
Gaining popularity, including among teens.
You're nothing but a marketer of a poison, and your target has been young people.
A Zyn pouch is about the size of a small piece of chewing gum. It contains nicotine salt, food-grade fillers, and pH adjusters. There is no tobacco leaf inside. The nicotine absorbs directly through the gum tissue within minutes. Users tuck it between the upper lip and gum and leave it there. Nobody nearby knows it's there. That invisibility is the entire point. That design decision, eliminating every visible sign of nicotine consumption, would eventually make Zyn worth billions. It would also make it one of the most scrutinized nicotine products in regulatory history. The company behind Zyn was not a startup. Swedish Match had been operating since 1917. For most of the 20th century, it sold matches, cigars, and traditional snus, the moist tobacco pouches long used in Scandinavia. They wanted a nicotine pouch that contained no tobacco leaf at all, only refined nicotine salts. The goal was to strip out the carcinogens associated with tobacco while keeping the nicotine delivery mechanism intact. By 2014, Swedish Match had a product ready to test. They chose Montana as the launch market. Montana said yes. Zyn spent its first several years as a regional product. It expanded from Montana into other western states and then slowly into national retail. By 2019, Swedish Match held roughly 60% of the American nicotine pouch market. By 2022, that number had grown to 76%. Phillip Morris International had been watching. For decades, PMI had built its revenue on combustible cigarettes, but the global smoking rate was declining. PMI's leadership had publicly committed to a smoke-free future strategy and needed a product that could replace cigarette revenue at scale. In late 2022, PMI acquired Swedish Match for $16 billion. It was one of the largest acquisitions in tobacco industry history. The company was not buying Swedish Match's entire portfolio, it was buying Zyn. By 2025, Zyn shipments had reached 794 million cans worldwide. PMI's non-combustible revenue had grown 15% year over year, and Zyn was driving most of it. Zyn did not run television commercials. Federal law restricts tobacco advertising on broadcast media, and PMI did not push Zyn into traditional ad channels. Instead, something else happened. Beginning around 2022, content creators on TikTok, YouTube, and Instagram started posting about Zyn without any apparent sponsorship from PMI. Fitness influencers used it before workouts. Finance personalities kept cans on their desks during market analysis videos. Gamers tucked pouches in their lips during streams. The product was reframed not as a nicotine delivery device, but as a productivity tool, a focus supplement, a clean alternative to coffee. The hashtag ZWIN accumulated more than 700 million TikTok views. Health regulators did not find PMI's claims credible. By early 2024, Zyn was everywhere online and increasingly hard to find in stores. In the first quarter of that year, U.S. shipments surged 80% compared to the same period in 2023. PMI's existing manufacturing facilities, one in Owensboro, Kentucky, could not keep up. By May 2024, the company publicly acknowledged supply chain tensions. Shelves at gas stations and convenience stores were empty. Online retailers imposed purchase limits. A secondary market appeared almost immediately. Resellers on third-party platforms were listing Zyn cans at double and sometimes triple the retail price. The shortage ran through the summer and into the fall. Competitors acted fast. On! And Rogue both gained measurable market share during the months Zyn was unavailable. PMI responded with capital. Production capacity expanded significantly. The shortage, PMI said in February 2025, had peaked. Full supply normalization was targeted for the second half of 2025. The shortage was not the only crisis hitting PMI in mid-2024. In June of that year, Washington, D.C.'s Attorney General issued a subpoena to Swedish Match North America. The investigation alleged that PMI had facilitated online sales of flavored Zyn pouches in the district in violation of its 2022 flavored tobacco ban. PMI suspended all online Zyn sales nationwide in response. By late 2024, PMI settled the case. The penalty was $1.2 million. The company committed to stricter compliance monitoring and accepted limitations on how Zyn could be marketed and sold online going forward. A state attorney general had moved against Zyn specifically, found violations, extracted a settlement, and set a precedent. Other jurisdictions were paying close attention. In January 2025, the FDA authorized 20 flavored Zyn products for legal sale to adults 21 and older. PMI called it a significant milestone. The FDA was more measured. The agency stated explicitly that authorization did not mean the products were safe and that no tobacco product should be considered safe. The ruling also did not resolve the larger regulatory question PMI cared most about. Since 2023, PMI had been pursuing a modified risk tobacco product application asking the FDA to allow Zyn to be marketed as a reduced risk alternative to cigarettes. The FDA's preliminary scientific review called the underlying claim accurate. But as of April 2026, the full MRTP decision remained pending. Independent review panels had raised concerns that a reduced risk label would function as a recruitment tool for non-smokers, particularly teenagers. The delay was costing PMI. Newer Zyn formulations requiring their own separate authorizations had been stalled in the approval pipeline for over a year. During that time, rivals with already authorized products were filling shelf space. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer called on the FDA to investigate Zyn's marketing practices in early 2024. His concern was specific. Recent data had shown that approximately 400,000 American youth currently use nicotine pouches, double the figure recorded in 2021. Of young people who had tried nicotine pouches, 73% were still using them. That retention rate was higher than most other nicotine products. PMI maintained that Zyn was designed for adult smokers seeking an alternative to combustible cigarettes. Regulators pointed to the Zynfluencer content that never mentioned smoking cessation. The message those creators delivered was consistent. Zyn made you focused. Zyn made you productive. It was a clean, modern, professional habit. Not once did the framing position it as a step down from cigarettes. Juul had entered the American market in 2015 as a vaping product positioned for adult smokers. By 2018, it held nearly 75% of the U.S. e-cigarette market. Then federal data showed a sharp spike in teen vaping. Congressional hearings followed. In 2022, the FDA issued a marketing denial order against Juul, effectively banning the product from American shelves. Juul challenged the ruling in court, and the order was eventually stayed pending further review, but the damage was done. The company's valuation had collapsed from $38 billion to under $1 billion. The structure of the Juul situation and the Zyn situation carried significant parallels. A nicotine product had achieved viral adoption among young users. Social media had been the primary vector. Flavors drove repeat purchasing, and the company insisted the product was designed for adults. Class action attorneys had noticed the overlap. By late 2025, Zyn was named in litigation alleging that PMI had deliberately used social media to market nicotine dependence to underage users. The legal risk was not insignificant. Outside the United States, the regulatory picture was becoming harder to manage. France passed legislation prohibiting the manufacture, sale, import, and distribution of all oral nicotine products, with enforcement beginning April 1st, 2026. The French Health Authority had cited a documented spike in poisoning cases among adolescents aged 12 to 17 as the immediate catalyst. The Netherlands had already banned retail sales of nicotine pouches effective January 1st, 2025. Austria implemented a framework in April 2026 restricting pouch sales to licensed tobacco shops only. Spain proposed a nicotine cap of 0.99 milligrams per pouch. Most Zyn products contain between 3 and 6 milligrams. A Spanish cap at that level would effectively remove the entire product line from the market. Belgium and Germany had moved towards similar restrictions. The European markets where Swedish Match had originally built the Zyn brand were now among the most hostile jurisdictions on the planet for the product. The numbers that PMI reported in early 2026 reflected the accumulated weight of those pressures. Total monthly nicotine pouch sales in the U.S. had grown from $145 million in January 2023 to $446 million by April 2025. That was 207% growth in 27 months, but growth rate had begun compressing sharply. By March 2026, month-over-month volume growth had slowed to 2.4%. Zyn's U.S. market share, which had peaked at 76% in 2023, was being eaten by On, Velo, and Rogue, all of which had benefited from the 2024 shortage. PMI was still shipping more cans than ever, but the market dynamics had shifted. The company was no longer operating in an environment of unchallenged growth. It was defending a position against competitors who had authorization, production capacity, and a base of former Zyn users who had switched during the shortage and stayed. PMI's case to regulators rested on a single argument. Zyn was not a gateway product, it was an off-ramp. If adult smokers replaced combustible cigarettes with nicotine pouches, the net health outcome for the population improved. The FDA's own preliminary science on the MRTP application had not contradicted that framing, but the agency had also watched what happened with Juul. The question the FDA was weighing in April 2026 was not purely scientific. It was whether authorizing reduced-risk claims would accelerate adult smoker switching or whether it would instead expand the total universe of nicotine users by pulling in people who had never smoked at all. If the FDA denied the MRTP application, PMI's ability to differentiate Zyn from competing products would narrow substantially. If it approved, the brand would have a regulatory moat that no competitor could easily replicate. The decision remained pending, and PMI, always at $16 billion bet on Zyn's future, was still waiting for an answer.